Hey everybody, we have taken over GS Studios. We are going to make a little bit of an effort to talk away from Chris. I think he's going to come back here in a second to let you know Scott's final thoughts. We were going a lot with the franchises, but what about Epilogue, Scott? Mario, to you.
Well, there is an epilogue idea that we never really got to touch because we got a little bit distracted on comic books. As we always do. And I hate doing that. But either way, there is it's an old but now new concept on the horizon for franchises, and it is called an anthology series. Made popular with things like American Horror Story in particular. I love American Horror Story. To a degree, season 1 is horrible.
Debatable.
But either way, it's an independent story, and each one is its own independent story, but it's somehow in the same world, connected in tiny ways that true fans of the franchise will pick out and think it's the coolest thing ever, but newcomers to each film don't have to have seen the previous ones.
Case in point, just a small spoiler during the vampire one, the witches from the previous season appear out of nowhere and create a crucial plot twist. While it doesn't affect the witches' storyline, greatly infects the vampire storyline.
And I want to point out it is a new franchise called the Cloververse, and it is an anthology series. Cloverfield has become an anthology series. First one, a giant monster attack in New York, and 10 Cloverfield Lane is a bunker story, isolated, and there's an alien invasion outside. Now, there are connecting veins, like, for example, the main character could debatably be responsible for the events of Cloverfield 1. So that's one of those things, that the little connecting veins. And now there's rumors that the new Cloverfield movie is going to be called The God Particle or The Cloverfield Particle. So it could be a new NASA-type story. So a space thriller, and now it's another independent story in this universe with these small connecting veins. That's really the anthology idea that excites me. Because with this popularity, with 10 Cloverfield Lane being a success, you could have things like a movie that's great but doesn't necessarily need a sequel. But you could make a sequel anyway. But just have it be similar in tonality and similar in style and structure. And that is an exciting idea because it opens up the avenue for more original stories. And that's what I have to emphasize. 10 Cloverfield Lane is an original story. Cloverfield was an original take. So it's the idea that you could open up original stories, but give it the tone of something that people are familiar with, that they can accept, and see connecting veins.
Okay, guys, I think I see Chris coming. He doesn't know we're using his equipment. Hey, everyone, post, clip, we got this. Get out here. Listen to us.
What is up, people of the internet? My name is Chris, your host for tonight. Welcome to the awesome podcast, GSTalks. We're sharing some laughs here. Starting from my left to right, Ben, welcome back, buddy.
Hey, everybody. Hope you're as beautiful as remember you being the last time.
Scott is here again as well. Say hello, Scott.
What is up, guys, gals, and everything in between?
Awesome tagline. Is that ever been used before?
That has been used by me, and I don't think anybody else.
And I am in control this time. Hopefully none of this taking over GSTV's bull crap that happened last time.
I regret nothing.
Sorry, Chris.
That's what I thought.
I regret nothing.
I had to lay down the law. The law is right behind it. My law is my right fist.
He's scary.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I got the golden Mario. We're going to start the show off right. So, bringing up the topic, crossovers. And Ben, why don't you go ahead and explain what a crossover is before we actually get into it.
Alrighty. Well, the biggest thing with a crossover is it is the true melding of two completely different storylines into their own unique storyline. None of this Cloverfield stuff that we talked about last time when we took over the studio.
Hey.
Nothing from DC, nothing from Marvel, Avengers, Man of Steel. True melding to create their own unique story.
Now, the first crossover I ever thought of when I was a kid happened. It was back when Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was on an episode of Power Rangers. Is that a good example?
That is an okay example. It's not quite a true crossover, being as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles appeared on Power Rangers. Now, while it was a fun episode, and let's face it, people, it was a filler because they had no other ideas for the time.
Right.
It wasn't a true crossover because it didn't have its own unique story. Now, don't be wrong, they defeated the bad guy. Woohoo! Awesome episode. Or it was 2 episodes.
I think it was 2.
2 episodes of Power Rangers. I believe it was
In space.
Power Rangers in space. That's what it was. It was a crossover, but it wasn't a true crossover. A good example of a true crossover would be the Kingdom Hearts series. This happens a lot in video games. It's when 2 completely different ideas meld into one.
So basically, Final Fantasy meets Disney.
Pretty much, yes. And unfortunately, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love the crossover series. I can't think of too many off the top of my head right now.
Street Fighter X Tekken.
Yep. Marvel versus Capcom versus
Whatever else.
whatever it was.
Oh, SNK.
Yes. And these true crossovers are a great thing because it takes characters we love with established backgrounds that we understand so we know who they are and creates a new story.
And would you argue probably the greatest crossover as far as video games go is probably still been Super Smash Brothers?
Indeed. Super Smash Brothers is just Nintendo taking everything they own and mashing it into
Not
a
even
brawl.
that. You had Sonic. You had Solid Snake. You have Cloud, who's never been even on Nintendo.
This is where I have to interject and be the bad guy. I think a crossover needs to have a story purpose, which, yes, we are on the right track with TMNT Power Rangers. Super Smash Bros. Is just a character fest. There's no real story behind it. Marvel vs. Capcom has a story behind it, but I think that personally, you're not really going that AVP is a closer route because there's a story.
Technically, timeout. Break time with Chris. Silence. Technically, Super Smash Bros. Has a story. You have the Master Hand.
Indeed.
So
Master Hand controls all.
exactly. So hey, know your role.
What's the story of Super Smash Bros. 1?
Master Hand takes a bunch of action figures, bring them back to life. Toys have to beat up the hand.
And pretty much the story of Smash Brothers is basically us. We are the Master Hand. We take all these toys, all these characters we love. What would happen if they fought?
Sakurai, what's his name? The guy who created Super Smash Bros. Sakurai. I forgot his full name. Apologize if I'm butchering his name right now. He has always envisioned when he was doing the stories for the Super Smash Bros. Series, even the latest one being for the Wii U or 3DS, however you look at it, starts out as Master Hand, grows into Crazy Hand, then becomes just this core. And the core is supposed to be the player. And you're supposed to go through that experience. I'm not going to spoil anything on how it ends. So experience it for yourself because it's quite actually endearing. I don't know if you knew this or not, Scott, but there is actually a huge story behind Super Smash Brothers.
And why have the majority of people not noticed the story?
Because, let's face it, we're all adults here, and if you're not an adult listening to this, I'm going to let you know a little secret about when you're an adult. You are just a large child who has access to alcohol. And it starts out, I'm partying, it turns into conversations. The conversations turn into, who would win to a fight? Pikachu or Mario? And from there, somebody
doesn't
made
make
something.
a cohesive universe. The idea of a crossover means they've existed in the same universe, as they always have. I could believe that Zelda and Metroid exist in the same universe, saying that they're separated by thousands of years. But when you tell me that Mario and Kirby exist on the same plane, or Mario and, dare I say, Solid Snake exist on the same plane, it's outlandish.
Well, like we were saying, the idea, well, we'll get back to topic in a second, but talking about Smash Brothers, the idea is that the player is a drunk adult going, who would win in a fight
But
from
that's
their
not a
childhood?
crossover story. That's just called a mashup.
And that's fair, and they have created a story since then, but moving on from that, like I said, Kingdom Hearts, great crossover.
I agree.
Personally love it. I can't think of too many more examples, but what movies do we feel that if they took characters out of their comfortable universes would create a great crossover? Case in point, whenever Deadpool decides to go visit the Marvel DC Universe hybrid. He destroys everybody and destroys the fourth wall. Great story, great crossover. Any other crossovers you can think of, Scott? I'm sorry for hitting you in the shoulder.
Oh yeah, that's all right. Again, I have to say, to me, crossovers, they need to exist in the same cohesive universe. Alien versus Predator is an example. I am not saying the movies, although the first one is dumb fun. The second one is the best movie that you can't see because it's filmed in pitch black. But the video games, the comic books, the books, that's a crossover to me. I don't think that things like Super Smash Bros. Are really a crossover. I think it's more a mashup. But things like in terms of movie crossovers, I'm going to say that, God, that's really hard, actually. There's not been all that many.
I just thought of this, the amazing crossover that should be but will never happen. A mixture of James Bond meets Ocean's 11 meets Fast and the Furious. I feel that would be an amazingly over-the-top crossover.
That'll never happen. I can guarantee that.
There's someone that once actually proposed the idea of a Mission Impossible James Bond crossover because the studio rights are going to be moved on James Bond within the next couple years, and rumor has it it's going to go to the studio that owns Mission Impossible, which is Paramount. So they're talking about, is this crossover possible? And I say it's possible, but it doesn't carry the same weight.
It brings back to the question of, because I said this in the last one a lot, we were talking about franchises and whatnot, and we kind of touched it with a little bit with the breaking news to Ben last time about a certain franchise crossover, which he's face palming right now. Should it happen? Should that happen, Scott?
Will Smith should never meet Channing Tatum.
Men in Black 23, I don't think should
I'm
happen.
not talking about that. What we were just talking about before. I mean, like, should Bond cross over with Ethan Hunt?
No, because there is nothing about them that makes them different enough to make the story interesting. That would be bringing in Jeremy Renner's character, which is why the Bourne Legacy didn't work. Bringing in Jeremy Renner's character, and it's like, oh yeah, he's another super spy. Cool. So James Bond's there. Cool. He's another super spy.
And I think we just found one of the key issues with the crossover event. It's my go-to, going back to Kingdom Hearts. Good, solid story. Anything we create now, if we don't create a new universe, is just going to end up being Ethan versus James. It won't be a cohesive cooperation. It'll be just another Alien versus Predator film.
Which Alien versus Predator in the movie world has failed in the sense that it doesn't accept its universe and embrace its lore as to why these things work. So there are worlds that it could exist, but I feel like they almost need to be different enough that it's compelling to the viewer. Because like you said, Ethan versus James, it's just two spies. We've seen it before. It's spy versus spy on Mad TV, and or it's one of those generic spy movies.
I'm going to completely change the topic here because it buzzed in my head. Scott, give me a Doom one-liner.
We are the reinforcements.
Scott likes Doom. Now, back on to crossovers. Would you like to see Doom crossover, let's say, I don't know, Halo?
No, because they're almost too separate at that point that it wouldn't make sense. Now, could I see a Halo Destiny crossover? Yes.
Well, I wonder why that is.
But the worlds match enough that they could fit. That'd be like saying, let's take, which this actually did happen in case of those of you who are wondering, Archie and the Predator. It did happen.
What?
Did it need to happen?
Wait,
No.
Archie as in, like Betty and Veronica Archie?
Yes.
When did this happen?
It was in the comics. Archie versus Predator did happen.
He died, right?
I don't remember. It was bad.
Jeez.
I'm going to step away from the mic. I'm going to fact check this. Ben, continue.
Okay, well, moving on to this, going off what Scott was saying, two different versus not the similar enough, popped into my head. I feel a James Bond meets the Kingsman movie would be interesting.
It would, because then you could have the gritty, realistic spy with the super, super secret spy. Yes, I could actually see that.
And their organizations are different enough, a completely national team of spies versus the Queen's spies, who end up having to work together, and I can see in the future turning against one another at the last moment.
Yes, which is why things like Alien versus Predator work, RoboCop versus Terminator. Which, actually, it worked with Ash kind of versus the H.P. Lovecraft Cthulhu lore. Kind of worked for Evil Dead.
So if I could go back, hang on, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, Scott.
Oh, no, you're good.
To Archie versus Predator, this is kind of flabbergasting me. It is not made by the people who do Archie. It's made by Dark Horse, so there you go.
I love Dark Horse.
But Dark Horse was able to get the rights of Archie, so it's canon enough.
Okay, well, new topic. Let's, instead of hypothesizing what could go wrong and what couldn't go wrong, let's make this a bit more fun.
This is gory.
It is. Children, do not, I can't say do not, because then you'll do it. Google's not your friend. So, Scott, I'm going to throw this ball in your court. Instead of criticizing the idea of crossovers, I'm going to issue you a challenge. Are you ready?
Okay.
Name something that would cross over beautifully with Pokemon.
Digimon.
You can't use Digimon.
Damn it.
Or card capture, or anything that
I was gonna
involves
say
capturing something to control for battle.
I was gonna say Yu-Gi-Oh. Okay, hang on. This is gonna seem like a stretch, but I have it. And you're gonna have to bear with me. Pokemon and Pacific Rim.
I can see it.
Reason being, it's a dimensional portal that opens up in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Imagine a legendary Pokemon comes out. The Jaegers and the Jaeger program, they don't know what to deal with this, because now there's this whole new species that's blending with our society, just pouring out these new species.
Listen, I have a theory. A game theory, if you will.
I like games.
I feel like Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, and Digimon all exist in the same universe.
See, I can't agree with that, mostly because I'm a super nerd. As I was saying in Chris's last podcast.
There we go.
Basically, I understand the lore enough that those three can't really meld, because Digimon is based in our world where you have a parallel world in the Digiverse.
But hold on, before you even say what I think you're about to say, back when Pokemon Season 1 aired, there was 151 Pokemon. And what region?
Kanto.
Kanto. And then just somehow 100 new Pokemon were discovered not even a year later.
Not discovered, they were just there.
They were just there underneath the hill, and it's a completely different region. But Professor's like, oh, I'm the all-known Pokemon professor. I'm doing a terrible impersonation of Professor Oak. But it just doesn't make any sense that he's the know-all professor of Pokemon, Mr. Pokemon, and then fast forward to the JoJo whatever league or whatever.
Johto.
Whatever. JoJo, shameless plug. She's awesome.
Well, like I was saying, the reason they don't meld is their lore is so powerful in itself, they can't meld. Pokemon, their own universe created by Arceus. Yu-Gi-Oh, ancient curses created in ancient Egypt using black magic. And then Digimon, a parallel universe created by our use of the internet. While they would be a great mashup, like in Smash Brothers, they cannot create a true crossover. If anything, Pokemon would have to cross over with something completely flabbergasting to us, like
Bakugan
or My Little Pony.
But hey, that's just a theory, a game theory. Thanks for watching. MatPat, don't sue us. Okay, go subscribe to the Game Theorists. They're awesome. Let's continue.
A crossover I would love to see, and I can't say this enough. I want to see what would happen between, and this is just within the same continuity, I want to see what would happen with the original BioShock main character versus Delta versus Booker.
Yes, I agree.
But see, what you're explaining as far as crossover, this is, as Scott put it, a Super Smash Brothers.
No, that's not. That's in the same continuum, which means it is a crossover. It's a cinematic universe.
And that goes back to comic books. It's not a true crossover. It's a universe melding. If I wanted to add someone in there, I'd add Doom Guy or Oh God, Doom Guy versus Duke Nukem. That would be a great crossover.
Yeah, that would be a crossover because they're similar enough, and it would work there. But a true, which is what's popular nowadays, is a cinematic universe. A melding of these would be the different BioShock characters. A Final Fantasy movie leading up to eventually Dissidia movie would be a cinematic universe, because you would then see the Final Fantasy 7, 10, 13 all combine into one.
But we're getting away from the original topic here of crossovers, because universes, as we said, we don't want to go back to the DC Marvel argument we had the last time. A true crossover has to be two completely different ideas. So
That could work.
That could work.
So, give me some examples. I know we kind of touched on it at the beginning, but like, what crossovers had already happened besides Alien vs. Predator or Kingdom Hearts?
Crossovers actually haven't happened as often as we now think, because we live in a post-Avengers world.
Well, one of the prime crossovers that no one really knows about is basically DC and Marvel crossovers. There is an entire comic book series, and I'm sorry I'm going back to comic books, everybody, where Deadpool kills the DC universe. Or there was an entire time where Quicksilver, the new fast guy we know in the Avengers movies, was considered to be the Flash who crossed over the dimensions. That's a great idea of a crossover.
I have to say, one that hasn't been touched on much, because most people these days don't really know about it, is the fact that we have the classic story of Dracula meets the Wolfman.
Or Frankenstein.
Or Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, is the old Universal Pictures monster mashups. And those existed in their own universe together.
I just thought of it. It just dawned on me. The ultimate crossover is Van Helsing. He fights all the classic monsters.
Except for Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Except for that guy. Because he takes their original stories and takes them into his own.
Castlevania, basically.
That movie was not great.
Hold your tongue.
But that is the classic, keeping it away from comic books. That was really one of the first true crossovers people hadn't even fathomed. Is the idea that the Wolfman's going to square up with another monster that they watched? And that is where things like Godzilla vs. King Kong, which is a dumb movie, and I can't believe they're going to do the Godzilla cinematic universe. But they are.
Well, hold the phone. We got a break. We'll be right back after this.
Love you.
I love you too.
Scott doesn't love you.
Apparently
I
not.
love all of you.
We'll be right back.
I just have another great one. What if the Count of Monte Cristo meant Captain Jack?
Yes.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about crossovers. Give me some. Well, I want to kind of take it over just our initial idea of crossover. Kind of going in the direction of we kind of touched the crossovers that already happened and crossovers we want to see. Now, how about maybe crossovers you think that Hollywood might do, or video games that shouldn't happen? What do you think?
Oh, Bayonetta meets Devil May Cry should never happen. But they are similar enough, as we were talking about, that it could happen. They're owned by the same company, too.
And there is a universe that is confirmed to be happening, but the Godzilla cinematic universe that we talked about kind of on the break is they're going to do Godzilla versus King Kong again. And I am not a fan of this, because they're going to do the 1970s King Kong movie starring Tom Hiddleston. They already shot it. But it's going to be a King Kong that can square up with the new American Godzilla. So after Godzilla 2, they're doing Godzilla versus King Kong or something like that. But it's too much, because King Kong should not exist in the same world as Godzilla, because now they're going to have to make a giant monster King Kong, and it doesn't meld with the Godzilla universe, because they would have known about it since this is a prequel to Godzilla 1. So I don't want it to happen, as much as I love monster movies.
Sorry, I just yawned there. I'm not tired. I what you're saying. I just.
I know.
Well, and see, the issue they're having is, I'm going to go back to, like I said in the last podcast, the Japanese. They got a great idea how to keep their continuities together. And Mothra. Mothra was his own monster who met Godzilla later.
Yes, but Toho has had their stumbles with monsters. Godzilla vs. King Kong being one of them, which was not American produced.
Listen, I'm not gonna lie. I have no idea what you guys are talking about, so I'm gonna sidebar this, and you guys just take on without taking over the podcast.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
Just continue what you're talking about, and then let me know when you're done.
Well, a great American crossover that I remember from our childhood, we were talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles meet the Power Rangers. There was a time where the Beetleborgs and the Power Rangers were allies.
When did that happen?
I was 7. I honestly don't remember. I just remember it happened.
I remember there was an episode during the Wild Force season that they faced bad guys that looked like Beetleborgs.
Oh, so that's a completely different thing. The episode of Wild Force where all the Red Rangers of the past
Red
came together.
Yes.
They were fighting a new ultimate evil who's trying to resurrect the evil Dragon Zord.
Yeah.
They recycled the Beetleborg costumes.
Is that just what happened?
Completely different. They
Okay.
just took the costumes.
Okay. Yes, Scott.
I'm sorry, but also with tangent crossovers, thinking nostalgically, the Street Sharks meet the Extreme Dinosaurs. That was a crossover worth happening, and it actually worked.
That's beyond me. I have no idea what that is.
Then you missed out on one amazing cartoon growing up.
Clearly.
2, actually, because
Clearly.
they had a couple characters that were the same. And so, out of nowhere, the Extreme Dinosaurs and the Street Sharks crossed over. So you had these 2 different time periods where some kids could watch the AM shows, which was Street Sharks, and I was the PM kids, which was Extreme Dinosaurs. So growing up, you had this crossover of dinosaurs and sharks fighting these bad forces like the Power Rangers and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It was one of those things. I was in like kindergarten, but it was awesome.
Going back to Japan, just so I can confuse Chris a little bit more, the important big league animes, One Piece, Naruto, Bleach, Toriko, they all see each in little filler episodes. And that is another thing Japan did really well with the idea of a crossover is they make their own story using these characters that does not affect their own continuity.
It's an independent story that they have to deal with themselves, which is why in the comic book world, because I'm an avid comic book reader, they did a crossover with Street Fighter, Sonic the Hedgehog, and one other. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Oh, Mega Man. And it was an independent story that they all had to somehow team up.
All right, well, getting away from these things that have happened, I want to say something that I wish would happen, and I don't care if it's a fanfic, I don't care if it's actually something written. I want to know what would happen if the vampires from Twilight met Blade.
It would be a mass genocide.
No, and I'm not talking about the main ones. I'm talking about Edward. I'm not talking about Bella. Fuck them. Sorry, that was necessary. I'm talking about the other vampires in the region that have no part in the Twilight story. What happens if they meet Blade? Go.
I got nothing. I don't know. I didn't watch Twilight. Blade would, I assume, would kill him.
Well, this is the true mashup between 2 independent stories where vampires are these gorgeous beings made of stone versus vampires who are clearly the spawn of hell.
See, I would rather see vampires from Twilight go against
Teen Wolf?
no, no, God no, Sam and Dean from Supernatural.
What if Sam and Dean teamed up with Blade?
That would be a triple crossover.
What if they teamed up with Van Helsing? These are the crossovers that should happen, people.
Exactly.
I have to say I want to
Buffy.
see Doctor Who do crossovers with some just any kind of sci-fi fantasy series, whether we do Supernatural. I actually think that the Hulock thing is cool, but
So why has
which
it
we
not
might do
officially
eventually.
happened yet?
Because the issue, and this is the biggest thing, the lore of Doctor Who is where he's at right now. He has lost his ability to cross dimensions. The moment BBC decides to bring that back, he could appear anywhere. He could go to the Pokemon realm. He could go to the Digimon realm. He could go to Top Gear realm if you wanted to.
Well, did you notice that they did a sort of Buffy crossover in Doctor Who in season 2? Yes. It was the episode where they were at the school and there was the principal.
Yes.
And he was like a gargoyle character, which is what he played in Buffy. And then they did a comic partnered with Joss Whedon that showed that those, in fact, are connected. They are blood related to the characters from Buffy in America. So then the Doctor has crossed over with Buffy and Angel once, and it's happened sort of.
Okay, everybody, going to bring this to a close here pretty quick, but I think we've established crossovers are amazing. Everything needs to happen that can happen, and the only way this can happen is if we get all the genius, legendary writers of our time into a room, give them a bunch of booze, have them sign some contracts, and we'll make this happen. Chris, what do you think?
Unfortunately, Scott has kind of spoiled crossovers for me. I'm going to bring this up real quick. We did a crossover a while back with Electrosick.
They are actually in the same universe. We established that in the first Electrosick, but that is not the point.
That is the point. It was a crossover that should not have happened.
No, actually, the script, if you read it, was great, but we have certain actors who didn't show up to finish their roles, and I'm not just looking at one actor in this room. I am looking at one actor who is at home probably listening to this right now, who decided to get diarrhea in the middle of a scene.
Scott.
Hey, kids think diarrhea is funny.
No, I'm not talking about that.
And he thought it would be so funny to just walk away and leave mid-shoot, causing certain other actors to say, nah.
So I guess we can come to agreement, Chris, that on the idea of crossovers, the only true crossovers can happen in the mind of the original creator of the shows.
Indeed, that is true. Guys, this was a short one, but it was fun to talk with you again. And crossovers being the topic, absolutely. Scott, thank you for being here. Plug your stuff real quick.
Go to Monster Productions 27 to watch our short films. And if you want to watch my reviews, go to MP27 Reviews and you will get a mouthful.
Please like, subscribe, and watch Holmes University. The fourth one is coming out real soon.
Expect a trailer drop soon.
Indeed. Ben, what do you got going on?
Hey, if we like this video 50 times, I will get my channel up and I will talk about whatever y'all want the first episode. Let me know.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. Thank you, folks, for joining us with another awesome podcast of GS Talks. We'll see you in the next one. And hey,
I also want to establish a challenge. If somebody shares this and says, Chris is gay for Scott, I will personally make the most epic bro code we've ever made, which will cross lines you've never thought.
Don't do that. And instead say the opposite of that. However you can fathom it, I will make sure my character says a swear word every other word through the entire bro code.
And hey, if you just happen to subscribe, I will love you. That's all I'm going to do. That's all I'm going to say. Guys, gals, and everything in between, stealing Scott's tagline. Have a good night. Kick back, relax, and we'll see you next time. Good night, folks. Bye.